This video isn't meant as a rigorous scientific account, but as a more poetic and philosophical interpretation, a way to look at neurodivergence through metaphors inspired by physics and philosophy, inviting us to widen our vision and reflect more deeply. This perspective invites us to explore one of the mind's greatest mysteries. Many describe it as a nearly quantum experience, not in the strict physical sense, but as a metaphor for something real, the capacity some minds have to keep multiple perceptual possibilities open at the same time. While most people filter the world in order to survive the flood of stimuli, the autistic or ADHD mind can dive into details, patterns, and connections that escape ordinary sight. Science calls this distinct cognitive styles. We, as parents, feel it as a window into invisible dimensions of reality. It's not that our children live in another universe, it's that they reveal layers of the same universe most don't see. And this difference, far from being a limitation, can be a gift. A form of quiet wisdom that forces us to slow down, relearn, and recognize that life is far wider than our usual categories can hold. The human mind holds secrets linear reason hardly reaches. Some prefer to call this quantum, not as exact science, but as a metaphor for the breadth of possibilities that certain consciousnesses sustain. The autistic or ADHD child, instead of clinging to a single line of focus, travels parallel trails at once. Details, sounds, sensations, invisible connections. What ordinary sight calls distraction may simply be another form of wisdom, the capacity to perceive layers that slip past the rush of modern life. Our children don't live apart from reality. They reveal its depth, forcing us to revisit our certainties and rediscover the beauty of the unexpected. In that meeting, we learn that the true gift isn't controlling the world, but seeing within it dimensions that were once hidden. The quantum physics of the soul, Stoicism and Autism's multiple realities, Nicopolis, 100 CE. Epictetus, the slave philosopher who became one of the greatest masters of inner freedom, observes two students. One perfectly masters Aristotelian logic, yet crumbles before unforeseen change. The other, whom we would now recognize as autistic, ADHD, or otherwise neurodivergent, seems lost in conventional lessons, yet shows an extraordinary capacity to exist in multiple dimensions of reality at once. Epictetus notes, this second student may have discovered something our philosophy does not yet grasp, the art of inhabiting several realities at the same time without being lost in any of them. This prophetic observation invites us to explore one of modern physics' most revolutionary discoveries, applied to the understanding of neurodivergence, the possibility that autistic, ADHD, or neurodivergent minds operate according to quantum-like principles neurotypical consciousness rarely accesses. If you've come this far, you've probably experienced those unsettling moments. Your child seems to be in another world, yet suddenly shows deep insights that surprise everyone. They may appear inattentive during an explanation, then reveal they process the information at levels you never imagined. Perhaps you've asked, what reality are they in? How does their mind work so differently? What if I told you that quantum physics, the science that studies the universe's deepest mysteries, can offer keys to understand these questions? That the discoveries of Heisenberg, Bohr, and Einstein about reality's strangeness can illuminate the unique functioning of neurodivergent minds? In the next few minutes, we'll journey through the Stoic wisdom of Epictetus, who transformed physical limitation into insight about inner freedom. Alongside quantum physics' revolutionary principles, we'll explore how superposition, entanglement, uncertainty, and multiple dimensions can help us understand not only how your child's mind works, but why they may access aspects of reality that slip past linear perception. This is not a video of complex scientific explanations. It's an exploration of how neurodivergent minds may be naturally tuned to principles physics has only recently discovered, but that some consciousnesses have always accessed intuitively. Prepare to discover that your child is not lost in their own world. They may be navigating multiple realities simultaneously, showing capacities science is only beginning to map and philosophy has always intuited. If you've ever suspected your child's mind runs on mysterious logics that defy conventional understanding, drop in the comments. Which behavior of your child intrigues you most scientifically? Subscribe to continue exploring the deep mysteries of neurodivergent consciousness. The principle of neural superposition existing in multiple states. Alexandria, 280 BCE. In the Great Library, Aristarchus of Samos watches a young scribe who, unlike the others, can't copy texts linearly. But when this same youth is shown complex astronomical calculations, his eyes light up and he solves in minutes problems that took years to formulate. Aristarchus notes, "This boy speaks a language we've not yet learned to understand. Perhaps he will decipher codes the cosmos has hidden from the rest of us." 23 centuries later, Werner Heisenberg would discover what Aristarchus intuited. Subatomic particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until the moment of observation. This phenomenon, known as quantum superposition, revolutionized our grasp of reality. The quantum mechanics of neurodivergent perception. Epictetus, who knew intimately how apparent limitations transform into unique capacities, taught, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things." Applied to neurodivergence, perhaps what we call inattention is actually expanded attention, the capacity to process multiple layers of information at once. Your autistic, ADHD, or otherwise neurodivergent child may be living a practical version of the superposition principle. When they seem distracted in class, they may be simultaneously processing auditory, visual, tactile, and emotional data that neurotypical consciousness filters out automatically. They aren't losing focus. They're holding an expanded focus a physicist might call cognitive superposition. Seneca, exploring the implications of multiple perception, wrote, "The wise person sees a situation from several angles at once, without fixing prematurely on a single interpretation." When your child takes time to answer direct questions, they may be processing layers of meaning quick replies would erase. Marcus Aurelius practiced multi-vision exercises. View each event from at least 3 perspectives: as obstacle, as opportunity, as teacher. Neurodivergent children often do this naturally, seeing aspects of reality linear perception misses. The physics of non-linear attention. Niels Bohr found that observation collapses quantum superposition into a specific state. Similarly, when you force your child to focus on a single task, you may be collapsing their natural capacity to process multiple dimensions at once. Musonius Rufus taught non-invasive observation. The wise educator observes, like a scientist studying a delicate phenomenon, with full attention, but without interference that would alter what is being observed. Hierocles of Alexandria developed ideas about expanded appropriation, the capacity of some souls to include in their perception aspects others ignore. Neurodivergent minds may be naturally endowed with this expanded appropriation. Processing information-focused minds filter as irrelevant. Cleanthes wrote of the universal logos, a cosmic intelligence manifesting through complex patterns. When your child shows an obsessive interest in details others deem trivial, they may be detecting expressions of this logos that ordinary attention misses. Emotional and sensory superposition. Epictetus taught that some impressions are clear and distinct, others are confused and multiple. For autistic, ADHD, or neurodivergent children, many impressions may be naturally multiple, carrying overlapping emotional, sensory, and cognitive layers. A classroom can be simultaneously a learning environment, cognitive layer, a sensory cacophony, auditory layer, a complex emotional landscape, social layer, and a system of visual patterns, aesthetic layer. While neurotypical minds filter these layers to focus on one dimension, neurodivergent minds may process them all at once. Zeno of Citium taught that wisdom emerges from sustaining paradoxes without forcing premature resolutions. Perhaps your child is naturally skilled at sustaining these cognitive paradoxes, keeping multiple perspectives active without the need to reduce them to one. The revolution of expanded perception. When you understand that your child may be operating in natural cognitive superposition, everything changes. Their distractions become explorations. Their delays become deep processing. Their unconventional behaviors become navigation through dimensions of reality you are only beginning to map. Epictetus concluded that true freedom comes from grasping that reality is wider and more flexible than our mental categories. Perhaps your child is demonstrating that freedom, operating by logics more flexible than neurotypical conventions allow. Quantum superposition suggests reality is far more mysterious and multidimensional than it first appears. Your child may be a natural explorer of these mysteries, living comfortably in multiple states of consciousness that quantum theory describes, and they practice moment to moment. Family quantum entanglement, connections beyond space-time. Princeton, 1935. Albert Einstein, with Podolsky and Rosen, publishes a paper questioning a phenomenon he calls spooky action at a distance, the discovery that particles can remain instantly connected regardless of the distance between them. Decades later, a father watching his autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent daughter writes in his journal, "She seems to know when I'm sad, before I recognize my own sadness. She reacts to my emotions even when I'm in another room trying to hide them, as if there were an invisible link between us that transcends the five senses." This phenomenon, which Einstein reluctantly accepted but quantum physics confirmed, may offer keys to the extraordinary connections often present between neurodivergent children and their parents. The physics of emotional entanglement. Epictetus, whose experience as an enslaved person honed his sensitivity to interpersonal dynamics, taught about sympathia, the natural correspondence among connected souls. When two people share deep experiences, he observed, they develop a form of communication that transcends words and visible gestures. Your autistic, ADHD neurodivergent child may be demonstrating emotional quantum entanglement with you. When they become agitated for no reason, investigate, were you anxious but trying to hide it? When they seek comfort, ask yourself, were you needing emotional support, even without saying so? Seneca wrote about mutual influence among those who live closely. Those who dwell in true intimacy affect one another's inner states in ways that escape rational understanding. So this influence may be amplified in relationships with neurodivergent children, whose nervous systems can be naturally more sensitive to subtle energetic shifts. Marcus Aurelius contemplated interconnection. We are all limbs of one body. To split apart is against nature. When your child responds to your unspoken emotions, they may be demonstrating this bodily unity more directly than conventional relationships do. The nervous system's quantum sensitivity. Hierocles of Alexandria spoke of circles of concern, expanding from the individual to the universal. Neurodivergent children may operate primarily through the most intimate circles, maintaining intense empathic connection with close family that appears telepathic to outsiders. When you feel compelled to hide your emotions to protect your child, you may be underestimating their capacity for emotional entanglement. Musonius Rufus taught, emotional honesty among connected souls heals more than well-meaning attempts at protection by concealment. Cleanthes wrote of sympathetic tension, a force linking seemingly separate elements through matching vibrations. Your internal emotional state may be creating vibrations. Your child's hypersensitive nervous system detects and mirrors even when you believe you are composed on the surface. The paradox mechanics of non-local communication, Einstein called entanglement spooky action at a distance because it violated his understanding that nothing travels faster than light. Modern physics, however, has confirmed that quantum information is transmitted instantaneously between entangled particles, regardless of distance. Families with neurodivergent children often report similar phenomena, sudden behavioral shifts that coincide with significant emotional events in an absent parent's life, intuitions about specific needs that prove accurate, communication that happens through presence rather than words. Epictetus taught about prosoche, an expanded attention that can catch subtle signals. A mind trained in attention detects information that escapes ordinary perception. Bohr, perhaps neurodivergent minds, are naturally endowed with this expanded prosoche, picking up emotional frequencies that linear processing filters out. Quantum co-regulation. Zeno of Citium taught that wisdom manifests through a dynamic harmony between seemingly opposite elements. When you maintain inner calm during your child's meltdown, you're not merely modeling behavior, you're creating a field of co-regulation that may operate by principles that are fundamentally quantum. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches connected breathing. When two people synchronize their breath, they create a shared energetic field that facilitates mutual regulation. Your child may be naturally tuned to your respiratory, cardiac, and neural rhythms in ways that transcend conscious imitation. The revolution of quantum intimacy. Once you grasp that real quantum entanglement may exist between you and your neurodivergent child, responsibilities and possibilities expand at once. Your own emotional regulation becomes not just a matter of personal well-being, but a direct contribution to the balance of the family system. Epictetus concluded that those who truly understand the invisible connections between souls discover forms of influence more powerful than any external force. Perhaps your deepest influence on your child happens not through words or actions, but through the quality of your inner presence. Quantum entanglement suggests separation is a fundamental illusion. You and your child may be more connected than you imagined, not only emotionally, but at levels physics is only beginning to understand, and your daily experience already intuits. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, freeing yourself from the tyranny of predictability, Göttingen, Germany, 1927. Werner Heisenberg makes a discovery that will shake classical physics. It is impossible to know both the position and velocity of a particle with absolute precision. The more precisely we measure one, the less precisely we can know the other. A century later, a father observing his autistic ADHD neurodivergent child writes, "The more I try to predict and control his behavior, the less I understand his true nature. When I stop obsessively measuring his progress, I discover capacities I never imagined he had." This revolutionary insight into the limits of predictability can fundamentally reshape how we understand neurodivergent development. The quantum mechanics of nonlinear development. Epictetus, who knew intimately what it was like to have aspects of life that cannot be predicted or controlled, taught a distinction that anticipates Heisenberg's principle. Some things are within our control, others are not. Wisdom is recognizing that trying to control the uncontrollable keeps us from influencing what we truly can. Applied to neurodivergent development, the more you try to measure and correct your child's differences, the less you perceive their unique talents emerging naturally. The more you obsess over what they struggle with, the less you notice the extraordinary capacities developing on their own timelines. Seneca observed, "Every new planting is wild at the start. Those who force premature growth often destroy the roots." The uncertainty principle suggests obsessive observation can interfere with natural developmental processes that need space for spontaneous expression. Musonius Rufus taught non-invasive cultivation. The wise gardener creates the right conditions and trusts the seed's inherent wisdom without trying to control every aspect of growth. Perhaps your child needs this kind of controlled uncertainty, a structured yet flexible environment where they can explore abilities without constant pressure to be measured. Observation that transforms. The observed Heisenberg found that the act of observing a quantum particle fundamentally alters its behavior. In quantum mechanics, there is no neutral observation. Every measurement influences the system observed. Heracles of Alexandria anticipated this. The quality of our attention determines which aspect of reality becomes visible. When you observe your child with fixed expectations, looking for signs of improvement or conformity, you are influencing which aspects of their personality show up. If you look only for deficits, they may begin to identify with limitations. If you observe with genuine curiosity about their unique capacities, you can facilitate potentials that anxious observation would inhibit. Marcus Aurelius practiced contemplative observation. Observe without judgment, seeking to understand the specific nature of each phenomenon. When you can watch your neurodivergent child without a modification agenda, you often discover facets of their personality that corrective observation kept hidden. The physics of neurodivergent spontaneity. Cleanthes wrote about kairos, the right moment for each manifestation. Forcing something to appear before its natural time is as destructive as preventing its appearance when the moment has arrived. Autistic ADHD neurodivergent children often operate by kairos logics that defy linear schedules. Their most significant discoveries may happen at the least expected times. Their deepest connections may emerge when you stop trying to force them. Their most extraordinary talents may reveal themselves precisely when you release expectations about how they should appear. Zeno taught that nature operates by principles beyond human control, yet they can be harmonized through wise understanding. The uncertainty principle may be at work in your child's development, requiring you to learn to dance with unpredictability rather than fight it. Quantum freedom of non-fixation. Epictetus discovered that true freedom comes from letting go of our need for things to be different than they are. The uncertainty principle offers a similar liberation. When you accept you cannot predict or control exactly how your child will develop, paradoxically, you gain more real influence over creating conditions in which they can thrive. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches beginner's mind, staying open to possibilities instead of fixating on expectations. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's, few. Your child may be naturally keeping this beginner's mind, preserving openness to developmental paths rigid planning would erase. The revolution of creative uncertainty. When you understand and accept uncertainty as it applies to your neurodivergent child, something freeing happens. You stop wasting energy trying to predict the unpredictable and invest that energy in crafting an environment where spontaneity can flourish. Seneca concluded, "The only certainty is uncertainty, and the only freedom comes from making peace with it." Lee, perhaps your child's neurodivergence is teaching you to find comfort in creative uncertainty, discovering that some of the most beautiful developments emerge precisely in the spaces obsessive planning could never map. The uncertainty principle is not a limitation. It is a portal to infinite possibilities. Your child may be navigating those possibilities with a natural mastery you are learning to recognize and honor. The many worlds theory, Navigating Parallel Realities of Consciousness, Princeton, 1957. Hugh Everett III proposes a radical interpretation of quantum mechanics. Every alternative possible state of any quantum event is physically realized in some world or parallel universe. Decades later, a therapist observing an autistic ADHD neurodivergent child during a session notes, "It's as if she inhabits multiple universes at once. In one, she's fully present with me. In another, she's exploring visual patterns on the wall. In a third, she's processing memories of past experiences. She isn't lost. She's navigating dimensions of experience I can only imagine. This revolutionary perspective can transform our understanding of what it means to be present for neurodivergent minds. The Stoic metaphysics of multiple states Epictetus, who learned to dwell simultaneously in the physical reality of enslavement and in the inner freedom of philosophy, taught the wise mind does not confine itself to a single dimension of experience, but learns to inhabit multiple perspectives at once without becoming lost in any of them. Your autistic ADHD neurodivergent child may be practicing this Epictetan wisdom naturally. When they seem absent in a conversation, they may be simultaneously processing your words, auditory universe, exploring the texture of your clothing, tactile universe, recalling a related episode, memory universe, and anticipating how the interaction will unfold, temporal universe. Seneca wrote about multiple attention. The wise can take part in the immediate conversation while keeping awareness of the universal principles that govern all human communication. The neurodivergent children may be naturally endowed with this multiple attention that adults must cultivate through deliberate discipline. Marcus Aurelius practiced cosmic view exercises, imagining simultaneous events on different scales: personal, family, social, imperial, cosmic. When your child appears split among activities, they may be practicing an organic form of cosmic view, processing information on many scales at once. The physics of parallel consciousness. Musonius Rufus taught that some souls are born with expanded perceptual capacity, able to detect aspects of reality others filter as irrelevant. In the many worlds interpretation, each quantum possibility is real in some dimension. Perhaps neurodivergent minds have more direct access to these parallel dimensions of experience. When your child shows an obsessive interest in details you deem insignificant, they may be exploring universes of information where those details are central. When they make seemingly random connections between distant concepts, they may be navigating dimensions where those connections are obvious. Hierocles of Alexandria developed theories of circles of reality, expanding from the immediate to the universal. Autistic ADHD neurodivergent children may operate naturally across multiple circles at once, inhabiting personal, familial, sensory, and archetypal realities simultaneously. Interdimensional navigation of experience. Cleanthes wrote of the logos spermatikos, generative principles that yield multiple manifestations of the same fundamental truth. When your child repeats behaviors in different contexts, they may be exploring how the same principle expresses itself across multiple dimensions of experience. Their stims may be ways of navigating between universes, movements that facilitate transitions between states of consciousness. Their routines may be maps to specific universes where they find order, beauty, or meaning that common dimensions do not provide. Zeno taught universal sympathia, an interconnection that allows events in one dimension to influence those in another. Your child may be naturally sensitive to this sympathia, detecting echoes among parallel experiential worlds that linear consciousness cannot map. Jung's ontology of parallel worlds. Carl Jung anticipated aspects of the many worlds view with his concept of psychic reality. The inner world has its own reality, as concrete as the physical world. Ubis for neurodivergent children. Multiple worlds may have equal ontological weight. When your child talks with invisible characters, they may be interacting with archetypal aspects of their psyche, inhabiting parallel experiential dimensions. When they draw or craft complex imaginary worlds, they may be mapping alternate universes their consciousness accesses naturally. Jung observed that individuation requires conscious navigation through multiple psychic dimensions. Autistic ADHD neurodivergent children may be born with advanced capacity for this interdimensional navigation. The Buddhist wisdom of simultaneity. Buddhism teaches interdependence, the recognition that multiple states of reality coexist at once. Thich Nhat Hanh notes, in the present moment, past and future inter-are. The awakened person can inhabit multiple temporal dimensions simultaneously. Your child may demonstrate this when they seem to process past experiences while participating in the present and anticipating future developments. They are not lost in time. They are navigating temporal dimensions, linear consciousness experiences sequentially. The revolution of multidimensionality. When you understand that your child may be inhabiting multiple experiential universes simultaneously, their distractions reveal dimensional explorations. Their absences become interdimensional journeys. Their unconventional behaviors transform into navigation through realities you are just learning to recognize. Epictetus concluded that supreme freedom comes from recognizing that there are multiple ways to inhabit reality, and that each soul finds its own constellation of dimensions in which it can thrive. Perhaps your child is a natural explorer of these multidimensional constellations, navigating parallel universes of consciousness with a mastery you're only beginning to appreciate. The many worlds theory is not science fiction. It may not be mere metaphor, but a near literal way of understanding how neurodivergent minds operate, reaching into dimensions of reality that quantum physics suggests in theory, and your lived experience with your child demonstrates in practice. The collapse of the wave function, when potentials become realities. Copenhagen, 1920. Niels Bohr develops the interpretation that would revolutionize our understanding of reality. Before observation, particles exist in superposition, all possible states coexisting at once. Only at the moment of conscious observation does the wave function collapse and a specific reality manifests. A century later, a mother watching her autistic ADHD neurodivergent child writes, I notice something extraordinary. When I stop observing him anxiously, hunting for challenges, and start observing with genuine curiosity about his abilities, it's as if different aspects of his personality emerge. The way I look literally influences which version of him shows up. This discovery can revolutionize how we understand the influence of parental expectations on neurodivergent development. The Stoic philosophy of transformative observation. Epictetus, who experienced firsthand how outer perceptions can shape the manifestation of inner potentials, taught, it is not the facts that determine our experience, but our interpretation of the facts. And our interpretation, in turn, influences which facts come to light. When you observe your child with deficit expectations, you may be unconsciously collapsing their personal wave function toward limited manifestations. When you observe with genuine curiosity about their unique capacities, you may be facilitating collapse toward extraordinary potentials that anxious observation kept in unmanifest superposition. Seneca wrote about the authority of perception. What we focus on tends to expand and strengthen. Marcus Aurelius practiced the discipline of perception, consciously choosing which aspects of reality receive priority attention. Applied to neurodivergent parenting, your attention can be a quantum tool, influencing which of your child's potentials manifests more fully. Musonius Rufus taught that the wise educator observes like an artist who sees beauty emerging from rough stone, not imposing an external form, but facilitating the revelation of forms that already exist in potential. Tatuti, the quantum mechanics of parental expectation. Hierocles of Alexandria developed ideas about circles of manifestation, how focused attention on specific spheres of experience helps materialize corresponding potentials. When you obsess over your child's support needs, you may be consistently collapsing their wave function toward challenging manifestations. But when you learn to observe with what a quantum physicist might call non-collapsing attention, present and curious, Yet without a fixed outcome agenda, you create space for potentials to manifest that rigid expectations were inhibiting. Cleanthes wrote about creative tension, a force that keeps multiple possibilities in dynamic balance until the right moment of appearance. Neurodivergent children may operate naturally within this creative tension, holding multiple potentials active until they meet the kind of observation that facilitates constructive collapse. Zeno of Citium taught that wisdom shows itself when we learn to influence without controlling, to guide without forcing. In the quantum mechanics of parenting, this translates into learning to observe in ways that help positive potentials manifest without prematurely collapsing the field of possibilities. Jung's alchemy of transformed expectation. Jung discovered that what we unconsciously expect tends to manifest, but what we consciously expect with unconditional love creates space for surprises that transcend our expectations. In quantum language, unconscious expectations collapse wave functions predictably. Conscious love keeps the quantum field open for creative manifestations. When you catch yourself looking for signs of improvement or conformity, you may be operating from unconscious expectations that collapse your child's wave function toward performances that confirm limitations. When you can observe with loving curiosity about who they are becoming, you create quantum space for manifestations that surprise both you and them. Jung observed that individuation happens when we stop trying to make someone conform to preconceived images and begin discovering who they truly are. In quantum terms, that means allowing the child's wave function to collapse naturally toward its most authentic configuration, rather than forcing collapse toward socially approved ones. The Buddhist wisdom of non-attached observation. Buddhism teaches non-attached observation, the capacity to witness fully without needing the experience to be different than it is. Thich Nhat Hanh notes, when we observe with an unattached mind, we create space for the true nature of things to reveal itself. Applied to quantum parenting, attached observation, a specific need for results, forces premature collapse of the wave function. Non-attached observation, loving presence without an agenda, allows an organic collapse toward authentic manifestations. When your child is engaged in repetitive activities, you have a quantum choice. You can observe with attachment, worry about appropriate behavior, which collapses their function toward anxiety and rigidity, or you can observe without attachment, curiosity about their inner experience, which allows collapse toward self-regulation and discovery. The physics of conscious co-creation. Epictetus taught that we are co-creators of our experience through the quality of our attention. In quantum mechanics, observer and observed are entangled. There is no neutral observation. The way you observe your child literally participates in co-creating the reality that appears. This does not mean you cause autism or can cure it through positive observation. It means that within your child's neurodivergent spectrum, multiple potentials exist in superposition, and the quality of your observation influences which aspects of that spectrum are expressed more fully. Seneca concluded, "We do not control external events, but we participate in their unfolding through the quality of our inner response." Your inner response to your neurodivergent child may be a quantum participation in co-creating the family reality that will emerge. The revolution of conscious observation. When you realize your way of looking can influence which version of your child shows up, responsibility and possibility expand together. Each moment of looking becomes an opportunity for quantum facilitation, creating conditions for wave function collapse toward constructive potentials. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The quality of our thoughts determines the quality of the reality we experience." In quantum parenting, the quality of your observation may be shaping the quality of the reality your child manifests. The collapse of the wave function is not only a physical theory, it may be a literal description of how your loving attention participates in the ongoing manifestation of your child's unique potentials, held in superposition and awaiting observation that helps their most beautiful emergence. Quantum field theory, navigating invisible energies CERN, Geneva, 1960. Physicists discover that the apparent emptiness of space is in fact filled with quantum fields, invisible energies that fundamentally influence how particles behave and interact. Decades later, a teacher working with autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent children notes, "Something invisible yet real is happening here. When I change my inner energy, my anxiety, my patience, my acceptance, the entire classroom dynamic shifts. It's as if these children are sensitive to energetic fields adults have learned to ignore. This insight into invisible fields can transform how we understand emotional environments' effects on neurodivergent children." The Stoic physics of family energy fields. Epictetus, keenly sensitive to the unseen dynamics governing human relations, taught sympathia, the natural correspondence by which inner states transmit among connected people. When two souls live in closeness, he observed, their inner states influence one another through channels that escape ordinary perception. Your autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent child may be naturally sensitive to the family's quantum fields of emotion. When you're anxious but trying to hide it, they may detect the vibrational frequency of that anxiety through a hypersensitive nervous system. When you establish genuine inner calm, they may respond to the frequency of peace even before you express it behaviorally. Seneca wrote about atmospheric influence. Just as air carries invisible fragrances that affect all who breathe, our inner dispositions create atmospheres that influence everyone around us. Marcus Aurelius practiced disciplines to purify his inner atmosphere, knowing it would benefit not only himself, but everyone within his sphere. Musonius Rufus taught that the wise educator recognizes they teach as much through the quality of their presence as through their words. In quantum field parenting, you are constantly broadcasting information through energetic fields that neurodivergent children may process more directly than verbal communication. The quantum mechanics of parental presence. Hierocles of Alexandria described circles of energetic influence, expanding from the individual to the environment. Your inner regulation creates a field that first influences your immediate family, then wider communities. Autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent children with amplified sensory antennas may be the earliest detectors of these fields. Cleanthes wrote of the logos as a unifying force, an intelligence connecting seemingly separate elements through vibratory patterns. When you align your inner frequency with qualities like patience, acceptance, and unconditional love, you may be tuning into logos frequencies that facilitate family harmony. Zeno taught that living according to nature includes recognizing our participation in energetic fields larger than our apparent individuality. Your child's sensitivity to these energies may be a more advanced way of living according to nature, maintaining conscious connection with dimensions socialization teaches adults to ignore. Quantum sensitivity as advanced capacity. Jung noted that highly sensitive people often function as antennas for collective psychic fields. In Psychological Types, he writes, certain personalities are naturally tuned to subtle frequencies of the psychic environment, detecting shifts others do not perceive. When your child becomes agitated for no apparent reason, investigate the invisible fields. Is someone in the family experiencing unspoken stress? Are there unresolved tensions in the environment? Subtle changes in routine that created energetic static? Their sensitivity may be detecting perturbations in the family's quantum fields that conventional instruments don't measure. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches interbeing energy. We are not separate islands, but waves of the same ocean of consciousness. A change in one wave affects the entire system. Neurodivergent children may naturally sense this interbeing, responding to energetic fluctuations as early warning systems for family imbalance. The alchemy of of emotional fields. Alchemists understood that transformation occurs through invisible fields, connecting operator, material, and environment. Paracelsus taught, as above, so below. Patterns in one dimension reflect in others. Your inner transformation creates fields that facilitate transformation in the family environment. When you practice conscious emotional regulation, deep breathing during crises, daily meditation, cultivating gratitude, you are altering the quantum fields your child inhabits. You are not controlling them, but modifying the energetic environment in which their capacities can flourish or their support needs intensify. Seneca observed, "The virtuous person benefits others not only through direct actions, but through the radiant quality of their presence." In quantum field terms, virtue generates frequencies that foster virtue in others, especially in children whose nervous systems are naturally more receptive to subtle energetic influence. Co-regulation through conscious fields. Epictetus taught that those who have mastered their inner storms can offer anchorage to others during theirs. In the language of quantum fields, your emotional regulation creates a field of stability that can facilitate co-regulation in children whose nervous systems are still developing. When your child is experiencing sensory overload, your ability to maintain an inner field of calm can offer a resonant frequency that helps them return to balance, not by suppressing their emotions, but by offering an energetic model for how to navigate emotional intensity without being overwhelmed by it. The revolution of conscious fields. When you understand that constant exchanges are happening through quantum fields between you and your neurodivergent child, responsibility turns into opportunity. Every moment of conscious self-regulation becomes a contribution to the family fields that support mutual flourishing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A stone thrown into water creates ripples that spread far beyond the point of impact." Jai, your consciously regulated presence can create waves in the family's quantum fields that travel across generations, teaching forms of love that operate through invisible yet deeply real dimensions. Quantum field theory suggests that you and your child are constantly co-creating reality through energies that transcend apparent separation. They may be your greatest teacher in how to consciously navigate these invisible fields that connect all forms of life. The Copenhagen interpretation of parenthood. Reality as conscious co-creation. Copenhagen, 1927. Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and other giants of physics established the Copenhagen interpretation, the revolutionary principle that reality does not exist independently of conscious observation. Subject and object, observer and observed, are fundamentally entangled in the ongoing creation of experience. A century later, a father reflecting on his journey with his autistic, ADHD neurodivergent child writes, "I finally understand. I'm not just a parent observing my child's development. We are co-creators of a unique reality emerging from the meeting of his neurodivergence and my capacity for love, understanding, and growth. Together, we are making something that has never existed before." This fundamental discovery about the participatory nature of reality can completely transform our understanding of neurodivergent parenting. The Stoic metaphysics of co-participation. Epictetus, who lived intensely the experience of how perceptions and responses co-create lived reality, taught, "We are not passive spectators of life, but active participants in creating our experience through every choice of perception and response." Applied to neurodivergent parenting. You are not simply dealing with your child's autism, you are co-creating with them a unique form of family that has never existed before in history. Seneca wrote about cosmological collaboration. Each soul participates in the ongoing creation of the cosmos through the quality of its choices. We are not passive products of fate, but active co-authors of the universal narrative. When you choose love over fear, understanding over judgment, growth over stagnation, you are participating in the co-creation of a family reality that reflects those values. Marcus Aurelius practiced contemplation on active participation in the logos. We are simultaneously products and producers of the universal order. Our individual wisdom contributes to cosmic wisdom. Your development as the parent of a neurodivergent child not only transforms you, it contributes to the collective evolution of humanity's capacity to love and include difference. Musonius Rufus taught that education is always mutual. Teacher and learner transform one another through authentic encounter. In the Copenhagen interpretation of parenthood, you and your child are constantly co-creating mutual development through the quality of conscious interaction. The quantum physics of mutual transformation. Hierocles of Alexandria developed theories of circles of reciprocal influence that anticipated quantum insights about how separate systems mutually affect each other through interaction. You are not only influencing your child's development, they are simultaneously influencing your development as a human being in ways that may be fundamentally quantum. Cleanthes wrote of the cosmic dance, the perpetual movement through which seemingly opposite elements harmonize into higher syntheses. Your child's neurodivergence and your neurotypicality are not competing forces. They are complementary aspects of a dance that is creating a unique family harmony. Zeno of Citium taught that universal sympathia connects all phenomena in an interdependent web where changes in any element affect the whole. Every moment of growth you experience in your journey with your child sends waves through this web, facilitating similar growth in other families, communities, and educational systems. Jung's alchemy of mutual individuation. Jung discovered that true individuation never happens in isolation, but always in relation with others who are individuating as well. Your journey to become the authentic parent of a neurodivergent child is intertwined with their journey to become an authentic person, independent of neurotypical expectations. In Psychology of the Transference, Jung writes, "In the deepest relationships, transformation happens through mutual contamination, processes by which we unconsciously facilitate each other's growth through challenges that force us to transcend our limitations." So your child may be unconsciously yet systematically facilitating your growth through challenges that expand your capacity for love, patience, and transcendence. Jung observed that what challenges us most often carries the most valuable gifts for our evolution. In the Copenhagen reading of parenting, the most demanding aspects of your child's neurodivergence may be co-creating opportunities for personal growth you would never reach without these specific challenges. The Buddhist wisdom of co-emergence Buddhism teaches pratyutya samutpada, dependent origination, through which all phenomena arise in mutual interdependence. Thich Nhat Hanh notes, "Looking deeply, we discover there are no separate entities, only interdependent processes of continual co-emergence. You and your child are not separate entities where one has support needs and the other provides solutions. You are aspects of a co-emergent system where neurodivergence and neurotypicality meet to create possibilities neither could generate alone. Your family is a unique experiment in conscious co-creation between different ways of processing reality." The Dalai Lama teaches that when we truly understand interdependence, compassion arises naturally. Udim, in the Copenhagen interpretation of parenting. When you recognize that you are co-creating reality with your child in every interaction, responsibility and possibility expand together. The revolution of conscious co-creation. Epictetus concluded that supreme freedom comes from recognizing our role as active co-creators of experience in partnership with forces greater than our individuality. When you understand that every moment with your neurodivergent child is an opportunity for conscious co-creation, everything changes. Your crises become laboratories of co-regulation. Your differences reveal raw material for co-discovery. Your challenges transform into invitations to co-evolve. There is no neutral observation in quantum parenting. You are constantly participating in creating the reality that emerges. Seneca wrote, "Life is not something that happens to us, but something we craft through our conscious participation in each moment." Marcus Aurelius expanded, "We are both sculptors and sculpture in the ongoing work of art that is human existence." The revelation of quantum parenting. The Copenhagen interpretation suggests that reality is created in the encounter between observer and observed, subject and object. You and your child. There is no objective parenting of a neurodivergent child. There is only the continual co-creation of a unique form of love that emerges when your capacity for growth meets their neurodivergence. Your family is not dealing with autism. You are co-creating a new form of human wisdom that blends neurotypical and neurodivergent processing into a synthesis that can contribute to the collective evolution of consciousness around diversity, inclusion, and unconditional love. Zeno of Citium foresaw an era when different forms of logos would harmonize into a universal symphony. Perhaps you and your child are helping compose that symphony, showing that neurological differences are not obstacles, but unique instruments in a cosmic orchestra learning new harmonies. Quantum reality is not an abstract theory. It is a description of how you and your child are co-creating love, moment by moment, through conscious participation in the deepest mystery of existence. The quantum awakening of parental consciousness. We've reached the end of this exploration across the most mysterious terrains where ancient wisdom meets modern physics. But as Heraclitus taught, no one steps into the same river twice. You who arrived here are no longer the same parent who began. You've been fundamentally transformed by recognizing that your neurodivergent child may be operating according to principles that transcend our conventional understanding of reality. Across these 7 themes, we uncovered surprising connections between quantum physics and neurodivergence. We discovered that autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent minds may naturally access cognitive superposition, navigating multiple states of consciousness at once. We explored how quantum entanglement can explain extraordinary connections between parents and neurodivergent children that transcend conventional communication. We understood that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle can free you from the tyranny of trying to predict and control development, revealing how loving observation helps unique potentials manifest. We saw that the many worlds theory may literally describe how your child navigates parallel dimensions of experience that linear consciousness rarely accesses. We learned that wave function collapse can explain how your way of observing influences which aspects of your child's personality show up most fully. We explored how quantum field theory reveals that you and your child are constantly exchanging energy through invisible yet deeply real dimensions. And we discovered that the Copenhagen interpretation turns parenting into the conscious co-creation of a unique reality. Epictetus, who turned physical limitation into wisdom about inner freedom, taught that it is not events that determine our experience, but our interpretation of events. You now hold entirely new interpretations of the events of neurodivergence, not as challenges to be overcome, but as quantum phenomena to be understood and celebrated. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make of it." If that's true, you inhabit a different universe now, one where neurological differences are portals to expanded dimensions of reality, where heightened sensitivities are antennas to cosmic frequencies, where unconventional behaviors are navigation through multiple dimensions. Jung observed, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Your journey with a neurodivergent child has compelled you to look within in ways that awakened not only love and patience, but an understanding of the principles that govern reality itself. You've awakened to a physics of consciousness operating in your living room. Seneca wrote, "It is not the length of life that matters, but its depth." Your experience as the parent of a neurodivergent child may be compressing into a few years' insights into the nature of reality that quantum physicists took decades to formulate. You are living principles that science is only beginning to understand. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches that when one person awakens to deep truths about interdependence, it benefits the entire web of existence. Your awakening to the quantum dimensions of neurodivergence is not a private event. It contributes to humanity's collective evolution in understanding the diversity of consciousness. Buddhism speaks of interbeing, the recognition that apparent separations are illusions, and we are all interwoven in a cosmic web of interdependence. Through your child, you have experienced this truth viscerally, discovering that well-being is entangled, development is co-created, and reality emerges from the meeting of different ways of processing existence. Zeno envisioned an age when different manifestations of logos would harmonize into a universal symphony. Plotinus taught of a union that transcends the apparent separation between observer and observed. You are living anticipations of these visions through your family, showing that neurotypicality and neurodivergence are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of a cosmic consciousness, learning about itself through infinite variations. Cleanthes sang of the need to attune to the universal logos that expresses itself differently in every soul. Perhaps your child is demonstrating this attunement in ways our culture is only beginning to recognize, maintaining conscious connection to quantum dimensions that conventional socialization teaches adults to ignore. Your child does not need to conform to neurotypical patterns because they were never outside the range of authentic human expression. You don't need to be a perfect parent because you are already the quantum parent they need. Someone capable of co-creating reality through a love that operates by principles beyond classical physics. The journey doesn't end here. In truth, you are discovering it never really began, because the quantum love you've found was always present, operating by laws Einstein intuited, and your daily life with a neurodivergent child confirms. The ancients knew that the greatest truths can only be whispered. Your love for a neurodivergent child is a quantum whisper echoing across dimensions, creating constructive interference in fields of possibility, helping new realities emerge that classical logic would deem impossible. Welcome to quantum parenthood. You have always been operating by these principles, you just didn't have language for them. Now you know you aren't merely raising a neurodivergent child. You are participating in the ongoing creation of a universe where difference is celebrated, mystery is honored, and love operates according to logics that transcend every apparent limitation. Quantum physics is not an abstract theory, it is a description of how you and your child are co-creating love, moment by moment, through conscious participation in the deepest mystery of existence. If this exploration of quantum physics applied to neurodivergence expanded your understanding, drop in the comments. Which quantum principle resonates most with your experience as the parent of a neurodivergent child? Share this video with other families ready to discover the scientific and spiritual dimensions of neurodivergence. Subscribe to the channel to keep exploring the territory where ancient and modern science meet to illuminate the mysteries of human consciousness. Remember, you're not just learning about quantum physics and Stoicism, you're living quantum principles through the deepest love there is, parental love that transcends every apparent difference to co-create realities that are impossible by classical logic, yet inevitable by the mechanics of the heart.